Okay, welcome ladies and gentlemen. My name's Michael Stockdale. Today we're going to have a whole hour discussion around something that's very, very dear to my heart because I'm a bit of a supply chain and logistics operator. So I'm most concerned with, and I hope many of you are, about the actual application of AI in real world uses. Now we've learned a lot about the theory of AI and the potential of AI during this particular event. But let's now start drilling down into how we're physically using it in the hands-on world. Now, many of you may not be supply chain or logistics people. Put up your hand if you are from supply chain, logistics or trading. So, one, all right, so that's okay guys. We're all consumers, we're all customers of supply chain and logistics though. So let me give you a couple of minutes to kind of give you an overview of what we mean by supply chain and logistics. Now think about this, every product that we use, every product, the ones that you're sitting on, the ones that you're dressed in, the products that we eat for breakfast, every product is generated, transported, it's used and discarded within a supply chain, and that's the result of a very complex orchestration of the materials, of processes, of time, of people, of finance, and of information, of course. So a supply chain really does represent, of course, a flow of materials through a network of typically global and complicated nodes and links, but it's predominantly facilitated by information flows and by triggers of information. And it consists of a long list of activities that must happen. In fact, there's 11. There's the original design of a product, including how we select the materials and such. There's raw material extraction. There's transport and distribution. There's the raw material processing. There's manufacturing and assembly of components. There's the packaging, the wholesale, distribution, the retail. There's the storage, there's the warehousing, value-added services, the actual use, and not to be forgotten, the end of life and what we do with products at the end of their lives. Now, I'm getting to why this is relevant to AI, so be patient with me, please, because all of this supply chain is characterized by four very important things that are relevant here. There's a heavy reliance on disconnected manual processes. There's a lack of real-time visibility in our supply chains. There's inefficiencies, particularly in forecasting at not only an item level, but even at a consolidated capacity level. And there's this constant disruptions to not only demand, but also to supply. Now the good news is, and this is where we start kicking in with why is this relevant to AI? AI is transforming the traditional supply chains that used to be linear, reactive, into something that's much more alive, something that's dynamic, it's predictive and adaptive as an entire network. But we still do have challenges, don't we? We've got challenges around things such as data quality itself, the integration complexity, our ethical concerns around AI, and also the increasing cybersecurity risks. But the future does look like something very, very clear, at least to me. The future looks like hyper-connected networks. It looks like AI-driven collaboration. Sustainability is very, very important, and human with machine collaboration. And what it means to the end consumer, and that's all of us. What does it mean to us? It means we're going to get access to a much wider range of products and services, greater access to customization and uniqueness of products and services, a significantly faster fulfillment of what we want, and pretty much error-free as well, at a minimal cost, and of course access, much better access to information that is relevant, timely, and on point. Now, for those of us that are involved in supply chain, and there's just you and me, apparently, but there's also logistics, there's mobility, there's the whole ICT technology world, there's trading, there's retail, the HoReCa industry, services, and so on. What we're talking about here today, it's of relevance. And it'll likely be the divide between business success in the future and business obsolescence. And that could be in the very, very near future. So I hope that kind of gives you a bit of an overview of supply chains and their significance in the world of AI now. Now I've brought some expert panelists here to take the discussion further. Now I'm going to ask each of the gentlemen to, in turn, introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about each other. But I'll just very, very briefly introduce Angad Singh, closest to me, Kenneth Lindesgaard, Paul Potgieter, and at the far end, Andre Verdier. So welcome, gentlemen. If I can start, Angad, with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your organisation, and even including a little bit about your background, please?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone in the panel and the audience. I'm Angad. I am the Global Innovation and Emerging Technology Director at Aramex. Aramex is a 40-year-old supply chain and logistics company. If you're based in the Middle East or North Africa region, you must have at one point received or been a part of our service offering. So what we do today is essentially in this division look at new revenue streams, new product development, and new solutions. And so AI is a very big part of that and quite central to a lot of the developments that we are undertaking at this point. My background's been in operations and supply chain setups globally. In Aramex, prior to this role, I was managing operations in our core region, which is the GCC North Africa region.
Very good. Thanks, Angad. Kenneth, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my name's Kenneth. Basically I work as a CIO, and I've worked across multiple types of logistics and production lines, everything from IKEA to airports to breweries. So I've seen a vast majority of different chains throughout my time. I come from the tech trenches, but I've always been in that interlink between what is business and what is the tech that enables that business. And I think where we basically see is everybody's screaming about, AI today, which we'll be talking about some of these things, but what are the use cases and where do we get the value and what are the prerequisites for it? And that's a lot of what I spend my time on these days.
Very good. Thanks, Ken. And Paul?
Hello, everybody. Yes, my name is Paul. I'm a director at NEOM. And for those of you who don't know NEOM, you need to start with the Vision 2030 of Saudi. As part of the Vision 2030, there's a big push to diversify from hydrocarbons and to not only diversify from the world economy, but also create industry through manufacturing and production. And I essentially lead the team that brings all the technology parts together, from the emerging technologies to the more classical technologies. We run a team that works with the business to ultimately bring these things together and then create digital businesses for NEOM. My background is a bit of a mixed bag. I'm a technologist at heart, but outside NEOM, I'm also heavily involved in trade between the UAE, South Africa, and Saudi as the chairman of the South African Business Council. So I would summarize by, I care about technology, but more importantly, I care about what we do with technology and ultimately how it actually impacts industry and trade.
Very good. Thanks, Paul. And Andre?
Thank you, Mike. Andre Verdier. I actually wear two hats. On one hand, I'm the Senior Director for Supply Chain Systems and Technology at Red Sea. Responsible for getting the supply chain system, the whole technology platform in place for the whole Red Sea operation. On the other hand, I'm also the managing partner for Innova Supply Chain. It's a supply chain consultancy focused on transformation and supply chain technology as well. Been in this business for 45 years, might not necessarily look it, but the reality is there. Started off initially on a technology basis, microelectronics and things like that. Got into the supply chain, and today I basically combine both. And just like Paul and my colleagues, my interest is mainly to see technology support the operations, make things work, make things easier for people, create visibility and control over what we do, so we can deliver and people can actually be relaxed in their activities.
Okay, thanks Andre, thanks gentlemen. Now, in fact, ladies and gentlemen, what you won't be aware of is that we all met up about 2 hours ago, and I don't think we've had a minute's peace between ourselves, so we've had a great conversation already. And some of us are known to each other anyway beforehand, so we're kind of buddies. So what I'd like to do in this conversation for the next 50 minutes, we can keep it reasonably casual. I will ask questions of each of the panelists, but certainly any of the panelists are welcome to jump in after the person has answered the question, because I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential that we can discuss here. So let me ask the first question. I'll start off with an easy one, right? And Andre, way down the end there, if I can ask you, which areas of the supply chain and logistics can benefit the most from AI?
I think that's an interesting question, because I would say probably almost all of them, but there's probably some that would benefit from the current technology more than others. If I look, for instance, at the whole area of understanding what customers want, the whole what we call demand management, forecasting, demand planning, where you have, let's say, tens of thousands of items that need to be planned, where companies want to know, well, how much do we want, when do we want them, where do we want them? Keeping in mind things like seasonality, things like the weather, things like movements of people, and so on. So if you have to calculate that, if you have to look at that, AI can help us tremendously in making a plan fast and adapt very quickly to new plans if things change. Rather than, if I think at the past, doing these things in a spreadsheet, it would take you days and weeks maybe to get a plan. Today you can have a plan in seconds, microseconds even. So I think that's definitely an area where that can help. I also think if you look at the visibility and the predictability area, to see how your supply chain is performing, AI can see the trends, AI can see what's going on very fast, bring that to the attention of the operators and say, guys, you need to interact here because something is going wrong. So there's definitely two I would think of.
Thanks, Andre. Paul, did you want to add to that?
Well, maybe just also a different angle to the same narrative is, I think classically when you look at logistics, it's a lot of what you've mentioned, where it was traditionally a lot of about efficiency, it's a lot about cost, and therefore to do those things we care about how we predict, we care about how we optimize the process. I do think there's another use case that's also evolving, especially with these giga projects. I mean, Red Sea that you're involved with, NEOM, ourselves. We are also rethinking about how AI can help us to create a circular economy. So these supply chains are decoupling. A lot of what's happening in Saudi is that we are localizing the supply chains for you and I right next to the Red Sea. And AI is allowing us to compute large amounts of data, but also to use that data in a different way, not only to find efficiency and cost use cases, but also potentially to monetize. Like in our world, there's a lot of waste. And our mission is to be net zero carbon, net zero sustainability. So for us, it has created, what it has done is to create an ability to monetize waste. So now we are capturing so much data, we got so much waste material, and we've used AI in this case to predict how we can exchange that waste as part of a circular economy marketplace. So I do think this is where supply chain and also new commercial models with artificial intelligence is actually helping us to do much more than just the traditional like cost and efficiency. It's becoming also a value creation. There's a value component to it, which I find quite exciting. And again, we are used to, we see this in these main giga projects where it's almost like greenfields. So we find better ways of using supply chain for cost efficiency across the process, but also value creation, which I think is quite exciting.
Fantastic, good answer. Thanks, Paul. In fact, Ken, I'm kind of fascinated by your width of experience. You've got experience from retail to rail, one might say. What's your perspective on that? What areas could benefit from the most from the most from AI? Sorry.
Yeah, I think when I've seen the different, basically the value chains of the different industries, I think where AI can really, apart from the traditional aspects, nothing runs without data. And it's so easy for all the marketing companies and everybody out there to just throw the word AI into it. But AI needs data. So what's the data foundation? So where AI can actually help you on is what's the quality of your data? So it doesn't really matter if I'm packaging, if my primary, secondary packaging information is wrong, I'm going to load my pallets wrong, which is going to cost dearly on my either cost of shipping, or I'm going to damage the goods, etc. So I think we can before we can actually use the AI on driving some of these process improvements, I think we can firstly use AI to help us on both understanding, but also securing the proper quality of the data that you're using behind the scenes. And I think this is one of the very unspoken of aspects. It's very easy to look at what is good and what can we use this for, but what are the prerequisites for it? And I think some of the things that I've played around with in my time for using drones for inventory. Well, if I don't have the right data in place, then how am I going to do my inventory? So I really need to make sure that my colleagues that are in charge of the warehouses know how to deal with the data, the quality of the data, that they have a rigid governance, the data stewardship, a lot of these things that are emerging more and more in the disciplines if you want to get value out of your data. Because the first times we ran some of these tries, we got really rubbish results of it. So I think AI, like you're saying, Paul, as well, it comes in multiple flavors, and I think it kind of originates a little to what is the quality in your starting point, the maturity of the organization, and how you put it into place. But there's definitely a variety of different use cases that I've tried a few of them, and some have failed in the first instances because the prerequisites were not in place.
Okay, thanks, Ken. I think you raise a very important point around the data. So important, I think that's worthy of parking that, and maybe we can have a conversation about that very, very shortly. I think I agree with you on that. Just on to Angad then, and you're basically running 3PL, so you're a real service provider in Aramex for obviously a very, very broad range of organisations, all of them very impatient as well, right? The customers wants it now, and error-free, of course. So what do you think, Angad? What areas of the supply chain can benefit the most from AI from your perspective?
See, I think the supply chain and logistics are foundational elements and foundational pillars of any economy. And as we go into a globally connected economy, these pillars get more complex and complicated to manage. Like you said, the demands of the customer keep on evolving, and evolving at a pace like we've never seen before. AI offers us a solution to manage this complexity. That's what it does. What it means to us in the front end, like a lot of the panelists have already said, but what it really means is in a physical world like logistics, how we can bring intelligence and augment human intelligence to make the right decisions. What does physical AI mean for us? It could mean automation, which already has seen a lot of prominence, but the next step towards that is autonomous mobility and autonomous intelligence in the back end, governing that kind of automation. It could mean simulations, which is quite critical to what we do. What that means is demand forecasting, planning on ground, which is again foundational to getting it right and keeping the error rate low. And AI today helps us in improving the way we do these things, and that's the bottom line of it.
Okay, thanks, Angad. In fact, can I stay with you, Angad? Because I think pretty much everyone here knows Aramex, and we know what they do. And I wanted to move across to a slightly different point, which is around competitive advantage. And we certainly know, the logistics business is super, super competitive. Can you tell us a little bit about what you think might be the best AI use cases, or at least the predominant AI use case that you could pursue in the name of strategic development, for example, or perhaps that will deliver a competitive advantage in speed or cost or quality?
See, I think, like you said, logistics is a very competitive environment today, especially in the express space where anyone can open up a shop and start delivering shipments. That means there's a lot of cost pressure, and that means what that translates into is a huge optimization opportunity. For any logistics company in our space, the core foundation is data, but after that, how do you use that data to make the right decisions and bring the right optimization in terms of executing the right plan and getting the right plan in place is foundational. I've taken it a step further and say that automation and autonomous mobility, it's something we're pioneers in. And I think this is very low-hanging fruit for a lot of the logistics companies in the region. Today, if you look at, take 50 years back, how were shipments delivered? They were delivered in the same methods that they're being delivered today in a gas-powered vehicle, and now we move to electric vehicles, but we still have a courier behind it. We still have a courier who's got app today instead of a paper yesterday. How do we change that? How do we evolve beyond that? How do we move to an instruction-based operation? That's, I think, great opportunity for logistics and someone in the logistics space. Moving from to an instruction-based operation, moving to autonomous operations, I think that's something that's very low-hanging fruit for us, and that's something that we're really driving into.
Okay, very good.
Can I maybe ask a question there? I think your biggest innovation, not only in the back end, I mean, I'm a client of Aramex, and I think a lot of people in the UAE are. I would argue your innovation that you had on the process side and the system side, that is table stakes to compete in a global logistics company, right? That is like you can't compete if you don't have those efficiencies or those productivity gains. But where you've changed your business, if we buy something and you deliver it today as Aramex, your user experience is probably the best I've personally have experienced compared to anything in the UAE. The way that you've used data, my information, to interact with you, maybe on different omni-channel mechanisms, and obviously there's some level of LLM built into that layer, but that for me is an unbelievable innovation that you very quickly were able to implement in the region. Overnight we were able to interact with Aramex, you were giving us information around our shipping, and to do that, I think you probably went through a significant cycle internally to do that, right?
A huge there was huge digital transformation that took place, right? Moving from paper to instruction-based operations, and to reflect that in the front end to any customer like yourself, it took us we're still undertaking that process, but it took us a good 10 years to make that happen. It's very difficult. A lot of the companies in the region have moved from archaic systems to new systems which are still archaic compared to the new AI wave. And how does that reflect to the front end where a customer now wants his things in 15 minutes? Getting that and making that happen, if you look under the hood, there's a lot of manual work that still takes place. Aramex has been fortunate enough that we recognize this quite early, especially in the region, to maintain our competitive advantage as leaders in the region, that we have to be able to undertake that investment. And that is definitely reflected on our cost. What does that mean? Tomorrow, if someone opens their store, a delivery store, and then competes with you on price, our customer, like you just said, still knows that I would love to work with Aramex because I get that end-to-end experience and the reliability is top-notch. That reliability and being boringly predictable is what it's all about at the end of the day.
Very good. Thanks, Angad. In fact, ironically, I remember living in Dubai in 2007 and marveling at the fact that I could order a book from Amazon and Aramex will deliver it in 2 weeks. And it was fantastic. At the time, I recall Jeff Bezos saying, one day it'll be same-day delivery, and we all laughed and said, well, that's just silly. That's never going to happen. The irony is today, of course, if I order something this morning and it takes more than how long? More than half an hour? I'm complaining and I'm not happy. It's not good enough. Which just goes to show that perhaps what was once before a competitive advantage, a very distinctive competitive advantage, erodes very, very quickly. It becomes minimum service level and then actually becomes simply not good enough to even be a qualifier to be in the business. So I want to stay on the point of looking at AI use cases to pursue in the name of strategic development and competitive edge. And Kenneth, you've worked with some of the big brand names around the world and in this region, such as IKEA and Etihad Rail? What would you regard as AI use cases that really give you that competitive edge at the moment?
I think it's multifolded, because if I look at, I came from airports as well. Everything is about your capacity. So you don't want to have, your warehouses be overfilled, so you need to build more warehouses. Andrea and I had a conversation this morning about that. So everything is about capacity. So we were looking at, can I use the operational windows that I have, the pattern? Can I use the cameras that I already have out on the apron area? And can I use AI models to predict whether this plane is going to be off block, meaning the pushback, on time, whether it's going to be delayed? So if the cargo bay is still open, if the catering wagon is still there, fueling is still there, and there's X minutes for, can I predict so that I'm not just knowing that, hey, I was delayed? Can I predict it ahead of time? Because this could have an impact on the capacity throughout the rest of the program of the day. If you need to then take your next flight and move it to a different stand because this one was delayed. So it's also to be able to use this for interruptions into your supply chain. You could have it can be a truck that is delayed. It could be a plane that was that would maybe have a technical error. That kind of puts something into your mix. So how can you quickly recoup and do that? Because this is about where you can get your competitive advantage. So let's say, if Aramex has a, delivery wagon and it breaks down somewhere, you want to be able to notify the customer quickly and as well, when am I going to, come with that good for you. Same goes for, in IKEA. Everybody calls it the maze when you go through IKEA. Having worked there, I know my way around the maze. So it's by design that you're going through the different, areas. But all of that, again, how can you provide the journey through, and somebody calls the marriage test, to go through IKEA with your significant other. But it's really, how can I get a great experience? How can I expose the customers coming in there to the right products at the right time, in the right setting, with the right atmosphere? And for that, you can, again, you look at cameras, you can do sentiment analysis, you can do a lot of different things. And this is where AI can help you gather all these different data sources and come up with something that you're then going to, separate yourself from. In order to do so, we launched years back when I worked for IKEA, we launched, an AR app. So you could basically measure up your living room, and then you could start planning furniture in there. Using AI and some of the early frameworks that came out on that, it required us to have the data foundation in place, so all the 3D renderings of all the furnitures, and then you could basically, map out your entire living room, hit a button, and you would have your shopping list. That, again, was something part of that competitive edge. How can we be different than some of the others that are out in the markets?
Thanks, Ken. I'm going to look forward to that AI-driven app that's going to guide me around the maze in IKEA.
You can get it. You can download, play around with it. It's quite fun.
It'll take me straight to the meatballs, right? That's what I want. Okay. Paul, I wanted to talk to you about NEOM in the same vein, right? Obviously, NEOM is known to be very keen to embrace the latest in technologies, but you're building real new cities that cover everything and how we live. What do you think are the main AI use cases in the name of strategic development for NEOM?
I think it's important to maybe just explain how we think about how we create a public service first, because we are creating a city. So in that city, we've got citizens, we've got communities, and that's a vital part in terms of how we create public services for those, call it personas or those entities. The other part of it is we are also attracting a lot of business-to-business investment. So as we build manufacturing and bigger, large-scale production facilities, you also need to create an environment where you can serve those type of use cases as well. So again, think about total green fields. You just have sand, and you now need to build a city. And within that city, you will have public services, which need to serve a community. And then also you need to attract business to business, which will create industry. And if you do this well, you should create jobs, you should create a different economy, and these things should then create a flywheel effect within the country. Now, AI plays a significant role not only because of the gains that we get for productivity and efficiency, but it also really helps us with some of the solutions that we are creating to serve those two personas, the communities and the businesses that we deal in. And the way we think about it, and I think you mentioned it earlier, we are all thinking about LLMs and how our personal worlds are being influenced by AI. But in the enterprise, the biggest problem that we have as NEOM is that we don't have all our enterprise data into our artificial engine, LLM, or our deep learning or our machine learning solution. So first of all, we are spending significant capital just to train our artificial intelligence solutions with our enterprise data. Nobody talks about that, but that learning curve is expensive, and also it takes some time to do it in the right way. We are a big NVIDIA partner. We've got about 50 H100s. And if you look at our utilization on those chips, there's actually very, very low. So we've got significant computing capacity to deliver artificial intelligence. But to train it takes long and is hard. Then to inference that data is hard and expensive. And then ultimately to build solutions with it is where the real value unlock is. And I think if you look at some of the use cases we've developed, specifically in supply chain, the most exciting one that I like is that we thought about last mile delivery. So a lot of these factories that we are building, they need to supply the community. So there's goods that need to be transferred from the factory, from the production line, into the community. And that we would want to do in an autonomous way. We would like to use autonomous vehicles, autonomous robots to do that. Now, to get that right, you first of all need to solve the edge. You need to solve the robot. You need to solve how the robot's communicating. But then very quickly, you need to look at how the data and specifically the algorithms, the vector math, the algebra that's on the machine learning, you need to think about how that will be implicated. So all these things compound, and it becomes a very complex and difficult problem to solve. But at Oxygon, which is our port of NEOM, we have been able to introduce robots into the environment. You can go there today, you can order anything from a carton of milk in a store, or you can order a carbon fiber material from the factory that we're setting up, and those will be those today will be delivered to you through a robot. Now, here's the kicker. The robot itself analyzes and then decides if this material that you've bought is applicable for this specific way of delivery. So I think this is the big difference. When we look at chatbots, when we look at how AI can help us, a lot of times it's at the chatbot layer where we are just engaging with data. Our mission is to get to a point where we actually have agents, where these agents can make decisions on the data. They can infer and really not only provide predictive, but they can actually action. So it's this movement to systems of action versus just systems of record. And yeah, I mean, today, I'm sure there's some media on it as well. You can actually see how these robots are making their own decisions in terms of the way they need to get to a destination, the way they assess the material that will be injected into their capacity to deliver. And I think that's a nice machine learning plus robotics use case that we'll just see more of in places like NEOM.
I've got a question for Paul. Sorry. So how are you balancing the time pressure versus the kind of capability development that you need to do? Like, you're building a new city. I'm sure there's a lot of time pressure, this is from what we read online anyway. There's a lot of time pressure to develop it quickly. How are you balancing that against the quality of the kind of product you will eventually create?
Well, I think there's a few ways to look at it. I mean, first of all, it's the phase that we are in is to mobilize construction, to build out the infrastructure that will not only be needed today, but will be needed in the future. So that's where most of the resources and most of the capital and most of the energy is going into. The second part of it is my role and my team's role. We care about the digital fabric that we can leverage to be a catalyst for this infrastructure build. So the pressure is immense because technology is playing a bigger role. Our business users want technology solutions not today, they wanted it yesterday. So we've cultivated a way to move very, very fast. I think my learning is in an environment like NEOM or Red Sea Project, you are very good in getting talent that can move extremely fast, extrapolate very quickly what are the key use cases that can derive business value, and then our partners and ourselves mobilize very quickly. So the key metric for me is like release time. So we think about how often do we release, and it's all about how quickly can we extrapolate value to the business. And it's never easy. I mean, as you know, it's a bit of a symbiotic relationship between business and technology. But I do think the philosophy is, and the mission is just so big. So you tend to activate very, very quickly, and you synthesize very quickly where the value would be. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And certainly we at Red Sea Global, as Oxagon's most recent new customer, we certainly appreciate what they're doing up there. And we're pretty pushy on the speed too, Angad, so don't worry. They're definitely performing, or they'll hear about it. In fact, talking about operations now, I wanted to move on to Andre. Now, Andre, as the IT director or senior director for Red Sea Global, you've actually activated the supply chain last year, around the middle of last year. So you've had a little bit of time there, and I wanted to kind of move on to talking about the actual operations now and implementation, because I think that's where the challenge is right now, is physical implementation, and it's not really a switch on and it's going, right? It kind of builds. It's a gradual journey, not really a flicking of the switch. Can I ask you, Andre, to talk about how AI can optimize inventory levels and reduce waste, particularly in the context of what you've done at Red Sea Global, which we understand already has quite a significant product range across many, many different categories. And obviously being remote and also serving ultra-luxury hotels, it adds a whole bunch of new challenges that you wouldn't normally expect anywhere else. How is AI helping that when it comes to the inventory and the sourcing?
Well, it's definitely a challenge. A challenge first to collect the data, collect the information, and we're talking about vast, enormous amounts of data and information that you need to collect, entry points. As you say, the project has been live now, operational effectively for about a year and a half. We're delivering high-end luxury resorts and hotels, including quite some actually on islands, which are less reachable than something on the mainland. Mainland, roads are there, you can easily get a truck or a car there and what have you. On the islands, I think you need to plan a little bit better. You need to foresee a longer lead time and supply chain to effectively get there. Now, if it comes down to inventories, you need to know what the demand, what the needs are of those customers on those islands as much in advance as possible. And that's where areas where AI comes in to say, okay, how can we predict, how can we foresee, how can we look at based on seasonalities, based on the whole customer flow, the consumer flow, the people that are going to go to those resorts, that make bookings in those resorts, how can we get that data, then use that data to see what their demands could be or can be, what they're looking for, create a demand pattern that we can look at. And make decisions and say, okay, fine, we think we need to have these and these and these things close by, fast delivery, other things that can wait a little bit longer and can flow in. Look at the whole chain, because if you look at the whole Red Sea project, we're talking about roughly 1,800 kilometers of coastline where you have to get it in at a certain point and then distribute it to the endpoints, all the different points from the first mile to the mid-mile to the last mile. To do that in time, you need to place your inventories on very strategic positions. You need to be able to calculate that, look at that, and that's where AI actually helps us in getting that visibility, giving us the indications of what's going on, where it needs to be. If something is in the wrong place, give us the indication of, okay, pick it up here, bring it there, move it around. That whole flow can be driven by an AI engine.
So I think you've explained the logical process extremely well.
Thank you.
But what's your view on the barriers to actually do that? Because I would say, like, everything you've just explained, each of those links are on different systems. Those systems are not open. They typically don't talk to each other. You need to be very good in integration. So to get everything that you just explained to us, maybe share with us just a bit your experience around the barriers that you need to transcend when it comes to like integration, common data platform, and all those type of things.
Well, I think it's a very valid point. Integration is one. I would in general say we tend to call it change management, working with people to make them understand, okay guys, this is our goal, this is what we need to achieve. You need to do things different than you did before. I think in the world of technology and IT, integration has been a word that has been there for decades, where people struggled with. It's sometimes even difficult for humans to talk to each other. Can you imagine how technology, computers want to talk to each other, systems want to talk to each other, try to create common platforms that we say, I'm maybe going a bit deep in technology, we talk nowadays, well, we have APIs. And as we have an API, it's going to be easy to integrate. Reality, I think it's still as challenging as it was before, because if Paul speaks English and I speak Chinese, we still have to have some interface between to, well, make us understand each other. So there's that whole integration challenge. It's also understanding data in the right way, categorizing data, making sure that if you talk about a certain data element, everybody understands what that data element is and what the characteristics of that data element are. That's also a challenge within the integration part, the whole mapping of that. And I know it goes a little bit technical there, but there's many obstacles in that area. I probably spent, I would say, 80% of my time in integration issues, in making not only people but also systems talk to each other and create a platform that sits on the same backbone and talks the same language. Then I probably spend time in effectively implementing the solution itself.
Okay, thanks, Andre. And that's a really good question. Thanks for that one, Paul. In fact, I think we can kind of take the integration subject a little bit further. And folks, this is coming from me as an operator, sitting up here with a panel of technology experts. So forgive me if I'm kind of demanding, but I'm an operator, right? What am I going to do? Now, I think, Andre, you know, Red Sea Global is a greenfield, right? Should be easy. Paul, NEOM is greenfield, should be easy. Ken, even Etihad Rail was reasonably greenfield, right? So is there a difference, and I'm going to pose this to you, Angad, is there a difference between a greenfield organisation implementing AI from the get-go versus if we're at Aramex, who've been in business since the 1980s? Angad, what would you say about how we should be approaching integrating the AI solutions to existing supply chain systems and, importantly, the processes as well as the systems? How's Aramex approaching that?
So I think the foundation of this question is very important. What is our AI strategy, right? Aramex's AI strategy is quite simple. We tie up our AI strategy to our corporate strategy. What is our North Star objective? Our North Star objective for everybody in the express place today is cost, to deliver cost optimization, to deliver better value for our shareholders. How are we going to do that? There are a lot of cogs in the supply chain. When we deliver that shipment, there are a lot of nodes at which there is a potential optimization opportunity. So we look at the biggest one, and that's the way we have done it. So we looked at our biggest cost center. Let me give you an example. One of our biggest cost centers is airlines or cross-border movements. We've seen the way we were moving shipments cross-border had a huge optimization opportunity, but that required an artificial intelligence, a lens of artificial intelligence to help us make better decisions. It needed to augment the human intelligence or the systems that we had there. And that required a lot of data, not only internally, but I think this might be the core difference between a greenfield and a kind of corporate like ours, is we had to, for the first time, actually integrate with external data sources to actually augment and better our intelligence. Once we were able to do that, we had really good output on how to move a shipment, when to move a shipment, and through what mode should we move a shipment. And then we could tag along other North Star objectives like our sustainability targets, which are quite critical to what we do today and our customers today. So which kind of mode of transportation would be the lowest emitting source of transport while maintaining our costs? That is a very tough question for us to solve today, and we've been able to solve that because of that lens and because of that thought process. So to summarize, one, you get your AI strategy in place and you attack the big fish, the kind of which has the highest amount of impact, and you try to bring in a lens of AI to better that process and to bring you that, deliver that optimization. The only difference between this and a regular software kind of deployment is with a machine learning AI kind of lens, that gets better with time in terms of its predictions. And for us, we've seen our optimization, the chunk of optimization and the kind of opportunity that we saw has only increased in terms of deployment since its deployment.
Okay, thanks, Angad. Now, gentlemen, I may have misspoken earlier when I said it's easy. It's not easy, of course. In fact, I wanted to... sorry,
if I could just elaborate on that, because I've worked for companies that are very young, 10 years old, but I've also worked for companies that are 100 and 180 years old. And really, there is no difference in that, because it's all about all of us, people. People are either protectionistic of their data, if they've been sitting in the same realm for 30, 40 years, etc., so they don't like sharing, or it's only them understanding the data, etc. I think it really comes down to how do you understand the source of the data you have? What is the quality of it? What is the governance you've put in place so that you can trust the data? Because if you want to introduce, automated decision making based on it, well, if it is bad data coming in because it's not, cleansed the right quality, well, good luck finding that robot that's going to take my carbon, whatever I ordered, that's going to take me somewhere else, right? And then I'm going to call Aramex and say, where's my truck? So it really boils down to if when you want to start looking into these, irrespective of the age or of the company, it's all about the maturity of the organization, the maturity of the people that are working with it, the understanding of. So I've led, master data teams, both on customer as well as, material. So the SKUs. So when you're, stacking a pallet with drinks, well, if you put the water bottles underneath and then you put crates on top, well, you're going to squash everything, or you're going to have an unstable pallet. And then you're going to have problem in your interim or in your last mile, or the pallet's going to tip. What's the weight, the total weight of how you put that out? All of that can only be solved if the data, the master data and the quality of it is in place. So I would say, irrespective of greenfield or something with age behind it, you really need to start digging into understanding that, because you can have a ton of use cases, but I've seen a number of use cases that were flawed the second we tried them out, because the data was not at the right quality, or was not even in place, or it was locked into some SCADA system sitting behind 85 different firewalls, right? And that becomes one of the barriers for you, I think.
Absolutely, and just on that point, I like the way the airlines and the retail segments have actually tried to structure this data. So they actually ask the customer, was that a good experience? And they say no. So now your customers have been able to structure the data for you and provide you with a very quantitative measurement of what that data means in the back end of a system. And I like that for the first time, like you said, like touching the external world and letting them structure your data. I think this is a very good example for all of us.
Thanks, guys. Now, Ken, you speak often of the risks around the data. If I was deploying AI into my supply chain, what other risks do you think I should be aware of?
Well, in terms of risk, if your data is in order and in your greenfield, so you must have everything in order, right? Yeah, he's nodding. So you can bring that conversation with him afterwards. No, I think in terms of the risk, it's really, it kind of comes to what you put into it. What's your investment to get that versus the outcome? And I think what a lot of companies and a lot of people I've spoken to is sometimes the investment that goes into it actually doesn't wreak, the benefit at the end of it. So you could have dumbed it down or simplified it even in the way you're solving it. Give you, a practical example, and this goes years back. We were looking at glass bottles being filled with Coke, And they were obviously cleansed because they were reusable bottles, but we wanted to make sure that there was nothing sitting, so when people throw, chewing gum or something into it, it can be difficult to cleanse out. So of course we wanted to make sure before we fill this and send it out to the consumers, it has to be clean. So what kind of technology could we put in place to, shine a light through it, etc., to see if there was no discoloration or anything, and then we would, throw off the bottle off the line before we filled it. And there was multiple ways that we could solve that. And there was the big fancy one that everybody was really all and running about, kind of like when AI came out. Problem was, it cost us 3 times more than just doing the pragmatic version. So I think one of the risks you run is being taken by a technology such as AI or alike, and just going with that as your optimal. So I think being at coming from the aviation world, staying at 30,000 feet at sometimes, looking at what's your process points, what are the different steps you need to get through, right? This is what we did when we talked about the customer journey through the airport. From parking to check-in to security screening, your dwell time in the security or in the shopping center till you reach the gate until you actually board the plane. All of these points, and I've used various types of technologies and sensors for reading queue lines, etc. I didn't need a lot of AI on top of that. Yeah, I did with the sensors, and I could calculate what's going to be your waiting time. But I could have gone, mad and thrown way too expensive technology at it. So I think that kind of balance is important to bring into it. And I think people these day and age get maybe, because they are greenfield, hey, we can just do whatever because you don't need to, adhere to 100-year-old, physical perimeter you have of airport terminals, for instance.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Ken. In fact, yeah, you're quite right. There's always a finance director asking the question, what's the ROI? Where's my money? Paul, when it comes to NEOM, obviously you guys will also have a pretty detailed risk mitigation plan, I guess. What's the main risks do you guys see in AI implementation?
I think it's across multiple dimensions. We've spoken a lot about technology, and I think we've amplified the fact that in the technology risk, open systems, data hygiene, these are things we need to care about. I think those are table stakes. Outside the technology, I would say there's a big barrier around data governance. So depending where you are transferring the data, where the data is originated, these things are vitally important. We spoke about how these open systems how they need to be interoperable. They need to speak to each other. But if the data is generated in the east of the world or in the west of the world, the way you do handshakes with that data and the way you catalog that data within your system, especially for NEOM, we care about that. We care about where it comes from. So I do think data governance is a big component. Luckily in this region, if you look at regulation around data, they are quite pioneering. They're very open. Between UAE, Saudi, and some of the other GCC countries, they've been leading the way in terms of data regulation. And then I would say the other big thing that we didn't speak about, but it's also cyber. I mean, if you look at cybersecurity, a lot of the technology we spoke about combines IoT, it combines data platform, it combines different aspects of technology. All of them are extremely vulnerable, especially at the edge. Everything has got a sensor on. Anything is talking, again, with multiple protocols. From a technology point of view, you mentioned it, we need to protect those handshakes. So I think risks would absolutely be cyber, would be governance, and these would be just a couple outside the technology itself, which I think we are thinking about, but also rethinking about how we can do it better.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Over to you, Andre. Same question. What risks are associated with deploying AI in the supply chain? But can I add something to you? In your experience as well, have you seen any unexpected results as well so far in what you have implemented?
Well, there's always the expected result, or the results you hope for to get on one hand, and the results that sometimes come out of something. Well, yeah, you feed it with something, and it happens. We've seen that several times where we say, okay, fine, this is what we are aiming for, We want to see how this is going to behave. And then suddenly something completely new comes out. For me, I always say that any AI engine that's built is as intelligent and as good as the person who has built it or the people that have built it on one hand. On the other hand, what I would call the blood, the data that you have fed into it. And if your data is not right, well, we've mentioned this a few times now, you feed something bad into it, you get bad results. Sometimes you think you feed something good in it, but it gives you the unexpected things, and we've seen that several times where in some cases it performed much better. You got that real good result where you say, wow. On the other hand, nothing comes out. The whole thing falls apart, and you have to basically start from scratch again in several areas. And that's specifically in a greenfield area. A greenfield, you technically have no data. You start from scratch, you have no data, you have no systems, you have no people, you have no, well, I'm not saying you have no knowledge. The team that's starting it has some knowledge, but you have to base everything on that knowledge and your understanding of the business you are building. And then you start to build that data model, and you start to build that engine that's going to use that data model to give you some results, and then hope, touch wood, that something comes out that's useful. Now, as you say, we have had some great results, and if I see specifically at Red Sea, where we came from zero a year and a half ago to what we deliver today, that's definitely a very good result. Our customers, and we've heard that again yesterday, are very happy with the performance that we deliver on time, in full, on the delivery side. So that's a good result that came out of it.
Very good. Well done. Thanks, Andre. In fact, gentlemen, I've pretty much been hijacking all the questions here so far, because I'm acutely aware that when you've got subject matter experts like this, they normally cost you a couple of $1,000 a day. So I thought I'm going to milk it for as much as I can. But I've really got to hand over to the audience now to see if we've got some questions from the audience at all. We've got 2 or 3 minutes left. Have we got any questions at all, folks? We've got a hand over here.
Is there Q&As? Thank you. Hold it close, okay?
Hello, from the back. I don't know if you can hear me okay. One topic that I didn't hear being spoken about today, and I know you're under a lot of pressure in terms of sustainability. So supply chain is under a lot of pressure to be sustainable, but at the same time, you're also under a lot of pressure to have as much AI integrated into the business as possible. But a lot of the technology can also counteract your sustainability efforts. So what is your philosophy when it comes to making decisions as to what you implement and when it comes to sustainability versus AI?
Thanks for that question. Gentlemen, who wants to take a sustainability question?
I mean, for us, sustainability is quite central to any decision we make. We use AI to better make our sustainability decisions. If you look at everybody within our space, and I'll be very quick with this, one of the biggest, supply chain is one of the biggest emitters, probably the second biggest emitter in the world. Sustainability for us means to move into more green kind of modes of movements. It's been cost prohibitive for a lot of people in the industry, and because of the cost pressure, it's very difficult to move. AI provides you with a tool by which you can better make that progress into that sustainable mobility faster than we could have done previously. So we're using that product to help us make sustainability related decisions. So it's never sustainability versus AI. It's how AI is helping us endorse our sustainability mandate.
Okay, thanks very much for that question.
Thank you. More Q&As down here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a question. How you solve the problem in future, the database?
Sorry, I don't think, can you repeat that, please?
I said, how we solve the problem, the database, because SQL not enough for the AI.
I don't think we're talking about databases anymore today. We might talk about a data lake, and in some cases I tend to call it a data ocean rather than anything else. SQL or any other technology there or system structure you use is just a very small element of that. Today, a structure is multi-dimensional. It's no longer two-dimensional, not even three-dimensional. It's multi-dimensional. So it's a combination of a lot of, say, technologies there to build your whole data structure.
I would just
Thank
add
you.
the other big thing is the role of cloud, especially in Saudi. I mean, in Saudi, we've seen the hyperscalers invest significant compute and storage capacity in Jeddah, Daman, Neom, and this is really to solve the how we store data. So it's not so much is it SQL versus Hadoop versus Oracle. It's about can you deliver high velocity data in and out. And for that, you need that compute to be as close to the business as possible. So what is interesting is the data center investment. For those who follow this, Saudi will be doubling. My apologies. They will be 190%, so 4x in the next 2 years, just for data center capability. So it's amazing the amount of compute that we are investing in just to sort out the storage component of what's happening in Saudi. So it's a very interesting dynamic to keep on monitoring. Yeah.
Very good. And thanks very much for that question. We've got two more quick questions here, but one here, please.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. It's very informative. Let's think fast forward like 10 years from now. Where do you think the AI is going to be very helpful into executing the supply chain, into moving not only boxes, but also people? I'm thinking 2034, when the World Cup is happening in Saudi, and how is that? How do you guys see that?
Thanks for that question. Kenneth?
Yeah, okay. I think, we all follow what's going on, quantum computing. And as Paul is saying, it's all about your compute power and how close can you put it on the edge, right? So that's why you can now get your laptops with an NRU in so that you have that capacity at scale. I think AI is not something which is new, right? We've known this for years and years. It's just the speed of how we can train models, how we can interact with the models, etc. I think with quantum, as they start getting more and more in, we will just see more and more immense power coming closer to being able to execute a lot more calculations, permutations, whatever, throughout. And then it's, of course, it's going to evolve to, be even more refined. We all know that the AI models today, I think we've all tried to speak to ChatGPT and see it hallucinate like it's crazy, right? So that's another thing. The way you train the models, etc. With the more power, you can get even better models, and I think we'll have more niched and specialized models that are maybe more fact-based rather than ChatGPT, which is a lot more like, hey, I'm presenting you some text which I got a good like on, right?
Very good. Thanks very much for that question. We'll see the proof in the pudding when Paul gets us into the FIFA World Cup games in 2034, because that's 10 years from now. Looking forward to that. We've got one last question, if we can, please. Yep.
Hi, my name is Niall. I'm from India. It was very nice hearing innovative leaders speak in an industry like supply chain. I wanted to ask the leaders here regarding AI and machine learning implementation. What has been some of the highest ROI implementations you've seen, and what do you think will be the highest ROI implementations that you will see in the next 5 years?
Okay, who wants to handle
Sorry,
that?
you were
Paul?
saying you're from NVIDIA? India. Sorry. No, we're dealing a lot with NVIDIA, so I thought... I must be honest with you, ROI is not the biggest topical thing on our mind at the moment because we are exploring, we are discovering. So we are in a fortunate position that I guess our shareholder wants us to push the curve of innovation. So, but I do believe that depending if you're in a commercial business, ROI obviously becomes a big component. What those use cases would be, I think, it's just nobody knows because you can apply it to almost anything. The distinction is how good are we in defining what problem we want to solve. I think that's been one of our biggest barriers. It's like, what problem do we actually want to work on? Defining what that problem is and then applying the technologists and the business people to come together. And within that, you can apply a lot of technologies. Technology is not the problem here. It is our ability to conceptualize it. And you can argue that's where AI will also help us in some way. But if we do it right, I would say the span of ROI will be there. At the moment, I think we are seeing a significant capital burn in terms of creating these type of use cases. I mentioned a bit earlier some of the compute and some of the capital injections that are happening, but it is, I would say, definitely at the moment, the mentality is let's innovate, which is always great to have.
Very good, and thanks very much for that question. Ladies and gentlemen, we've actually gone a little bit over time because this has been such a fantastic and very interesting conversation. Andre Verdier from Red Sea Global, Paul Potgieter from NEOM, Kenneth Lindesgaard, and Angad Singh from Aramex. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank the panelists.